Tom moved into the old house at the end of the street after his sister moved away. People said the place was creepy, with doors that creaked even when there was no wind. Tom didn't believe in ghosts, only rent payments and a quiet night. On his first night, the house felt too quiet. The clock in the hallway ticked in a steady rhythm, but it sounded a little too loud, like someone tapping a finger on a table when you're trying to sleep. Tom told himself it was just the house settling, nothing more. In the morning, he found a note on the kitchen table. It hadn't been there the night before. The handwriting was neat, but the ink looked fresh, as if it had been written recently by someone who wasn't there a moment ago. "Listen to the hall. It knows your name." Tom laughed quietly and folded the note. He showed it to no one. He believed in logic, in light switches and coffee, in plain explanations. He turned on the kitchen light, but the bulb flickered once, then hummed to life. The hall light above the stairs flickered too, though there was no draft. That night, Tom walked to the stairs. He paused halfway up, listening. The house was quiet, but not empty. There was a soft sound like a whisper catching in a throat. He stood very still. The whisper grew louder, clearer, and it spoke his name, Tom, in a voice that wasn't quite his own. It asked him to come closer, to listen to what the walls remembered. "Who's there?" Tom whispered back, though he already knew the answer. The whisper replied, not with words, but with a memory, one from long ago. A door opened somewhere in the house, and the memory spilled out in the air. A girl crying softly, a clock ticking faster than it should, and a room filled with shadows that learned to breathe. The memory showed Tom a simple truth. Every room keeps a listener. If you listen long enough, you become part of the memory itself. Tom's breath grew shallow. He stepped back and the whispering stopped. The house fell into a heavy stillness, like the moment before rain. The next morning, Tom found the hall light on, even though he hadn't switched it. The note was again on the table, but this time the ink wasn't fresh. It looked old, as if written well before Tom moved in. The listener stays quiet, or becomes the memory. A chill ran down his spine. He searched the house and found nothing unusual, nothing moved, nothing broken. But the whisper returned, softer now, closer. It sounded like a girl's voice, gentle but with a faint tremor, saying, "Stay and listen." That night, Tom decided to test the memory. He stood in the hall and spoke aloud to the walls, asking about the room's history, about who had lived here, and why the house felt so heavy with names. The walls answered, not with words, but with images that flashed through his mind in quick succession. Doors opening into empty rooms, a clock ticking rapidly, a child's laughter that broke into sobs, and then silence. When the images faded, Tom realized something terrible. He had been listening for too long. The weight of all those memories pressed down on him, each memory begging for a listener to finish its story. He understood that some places don't just remember people. They remember you. The final memory came last and was the most personal. It showed Tom himself as a small child, sitting in a chair by a window, watching rain fall on the glass. A quiet voice whispered from the other side of the glass, "You've always listened. Now you must be quiet forever." The memory ended with the door sliding shut, and the house sighed. From that night, the house stayed quiet, almost too quiet. The hall light stayed on, even when Tom slept. The note never changed, always reminding him to listen. And every time he stood in the hallway, he felt the weight of the memories around him, like a living audience waiting for him to finish the story he had started. One morning, the police found Tom gone, as if he had stepped into the wall and disappeared. The house kept its quiet, the hall light glowed softly, and a new note lay on the table in Tom's handwriting. If you listen long enough, you become part of the story. The neighbors whispered that the old house was empty now, yet every night, if you stood near the hallway, you could hear a faint, distant whisper. Tom's name spoken by the walls, calling someone to listen, to stay, to become part of the memory forever.